Journey to Healing, Reaching Women with a Desperate Cry is an 8-week Zoom seminar in which Kamala and Winston help women to start living their best life by rediscovering the image of God in their life. Kamala, a licensed marriage and family therapist, joins her husband of 16 years, an ordained pastor, to marry the clinical and the spiritual. You will begin living your best life filled with love, joy, and peace. Register at kwministries.net for this life-changing seminar.
So anxious resistant. So remember there were 4 categories, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anxious resistant kids were on the opposite end of the spectrum. They didn't have a lot of self-confidence. They really clung to their caregivers, whether it's parents. When I say caregivers, I mean parents, grandparents, just old people in their lives who were, really part of that initial bonding experience. For these kids, they tended to have really exaggerated emotional reactions to stuff, but they also kept the distance from their peers. How did this translate into adulthood? That translated into anxious, preoccupied adults. Mm-hmm. And so they kind of formed less secure bonds with partners and feel really desperate for love and affection.
God is patient. God is kind. God is long-suffering. God never fails. God always hopes. God always trusts. God always perseveres. God doesn't envy. God doesn't boast. God doesn't seek his own, but is always seeking what's best for you. God rejoices in the truth.
That's right.
God doesn't define love. God demonstrates love.
There's a commercial that used to say, "Don't leave home without it." I think it was MasterCard. And at the end, they would say, you couldn't put a price on it. A price could not be put on what you and your wife did for me this week. And I'm just praying that your ministry will continue to be the blessing to others as it has been to me this week. Just the opening of the eyes, just seeing God's word with a whole different set of lenses, just understanding what is required of us and laying aside the misnomers, the erroneous teachings, the errors, and just accepting who I am in Christ. And no one else could tell me who I am but the Word.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for hanging out with us all week long.
Thank you for being there with us.
The Holy Spirit is the one that guides you through life, and as long as you are sealed by Him, as long as you have Him and it is evidence that you have Him, you are safe. What's the evidence? We told you before. Galatians 5 verses 22 and 23. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. That's the fruit of the Spirit. That's the evidence that we have the Holy Spirit in our lives. And, friends of mine, when we have the Holy Spirit in our lives, we are safe. There is now no condemnation to those who are in Christ Jesus, to those who walk by the Spirit. Romans 8 verse 1.
And we have Jimmy here with us. Uncle Jimmy, how are you?
Hey, what's going on, Taylor family?
It's so good to see you, man.
Tailor made. That's what we're gonna call y'all. Y'all are tailor made. Yes,
Tailor made. There you go, bro. So today is Monday.
And of course, if it's Monday night, that means what?
You're live with KW. But here's the thing: we gotta figure out how we're live with KWJ.
Work in progress.
Right.
KWJ.
Ooh, I like that. All right. So on Mondays we celebrate. Mondays can be so tough, can be so challenging, and we want to do our part in changing the mindset.
Yes.
So that Monday is a day of thankfulness and celebration. So Uncle Jimmy, what are you thankful for today?
I'm thankful that my wife is back home with me this week. Amen.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I won't say anything about you saying that. What we our backstage discussion about how happy you are. I leave it alone.
I just sleep better. Just say my sleep pattern has changed. For the better.
I'll just celebrate with you. What are you thankful for?
I was thinking about how I would answer this question, and I'm thinking back to a little backstage that we did just now. Part of what we do here is authenticity, right?
Yes.
And we talked about how tired we were.
Yes.
However, I'm going to turn that on its head because part of celebrating Mondays is to be able to look for the positive, right?
Right.
And so I am grateful
Give
to have worked so hard
Yes.
to be tired.
Yes.
Amen.
I love
Because
it.
there's a flip side to that, right? I could be so rested because I ain't got nothing else
The
to
job.
do.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm grateful that I'm back at work. I'm grateful for that. I'm celebrating that
Absolutely.
and all what that means.
Yes, indeed.
So like you said, so I'm really grateful to that. We would like to welcome you and thank you so very much for joining us. Could you please tell us what you're thankful for? We have a really great guest tonight, and we're going to have a wonderful discussion. And we want for you to chime in and ask questions and join the discussion. But as we get ready to introduce him and bring him in, we want to just tell us real quick what you're thankful for. While that way we can already know who's on. Sister Martin, how are you? Joining us from Florida. And you're down South Florida, so we know that the hurricane slipped by you, but now we have
Hurricane
Lee out there in the ocean. So we're praying. They said that the East Coast will feel some effects, nothing major, but of course we're praying. So, but Sister Martin, tell us what you're thankful for. And Sister Martin, we're thankful because you gave a great donation.
Yes,
Yes,
right.
you gave a great donation to South Georgia Partnership to End Homelessness so we could help the folk in Valdosta, Georgia. And they send their thank you. She's thankful for God's blessings on her life. Yes, not just Sister Martin. Who else? Tell us what you're thankful for. And while we're doing that, we want to say we're thankful for all of you who donated. We raised over $550 to send to South Georgia Partnership to End Homelessness. Now, I know that's not a lot of money. However, you don't have any idea what it means to get a $25 gift card when you're in those. Exactly. And so we're really grateful to all of you. Hey, Brother Glenn, how are you? What are you thankful for? Tell us what you're thankful for. So again, we want to say welcome to you. If it's Monday night,
You're live with KWJ.
KWJ, I love it, Annie K. KWJ. And he sent us his pics. And so, you know, we can start updating the stuff.
So while you're thinking of stuff to be thankful for, and trust me, you've got a couple of things that you're probably thankful for. I want to remind you of the reason why we're here.
Yes.
So every Monday night, some of you have been with us faithfully, and some of you are joining us for the very first time, and you're like, okay, what's this? So Monday Night Live is all about us coming together and sharing our experiences with each other. You know, a lot of us go through lots of different things. Life be lifing out here, right?
Yes.
And so we get the opportunity here just to talk with different people about the things that's going well, what's not going so well, what's working, what's not working. And we get to share in that experience, and we don't feel so alone in that, right?
That's right. I love it. It. And as most of you know, this was born out of our own brokenness. And as we go on our healing journey, we just want to say, hey, come with us. So we're excited. This is, I'm thankful how God is turning things around in my life and the others as well. Absolutely. But we're thankful for you, Mr. Mack, and how God is turning things around in your life. Uncle Jimmy, anything before we introduce our guests for tonight?
No, you know, one of the other things that I'm joyful about, that we didn't have 100-degree temperatures.
Oh yes,
for the last
dropping.
4 or 5 days.
Oh yes,
you know,
yes.
I'm just thankful that I got up this morning, got in the car, and it was 69 degrees. I thought I had moved to the North Pole almost. I'm thankful. I'm thankful to be alive, and I'm thankful to be a part of this wonderful ministry. That's
about to break out into
songs. I'm grateful. And we're doing something special this weekend, aren't we? We're having a guest pastor. Edmund is going to be with us 5 o'clock. Well, he's going to be at my church early in the morning, but then 5 o'clock, our churches will get together this weekend. So I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to that. So we have a special guest with us tonight. We have Sheriff Richardson. He's the sheriff over the DeSoto Parish here in Louisiana. I went to visit with him on a work assignment, and I think we spoke for almost 2 hours. And in speaking to him, you remember the text that says that the baby in Mary's belly leaped when Mary went to see her cousin Elizabeth. Remember? So, you know, I'm a male. I don't have any babies in my stomach. But something in my spirit, Brother Glenn said, I'm thankful to be alive. I'm in my right mind. I can still take care of myself at 81 years old. God is a good God. Yes, we're thankful for you. Something in me leaped as I spoke with this man. It was just an amazing, I mean, we spoke for about 2 hours. It felt like 15 minutes. When it was time to go, I was like, it's over, we're done. His love for community, his love. I don't think we spoke about policing at all. I don't remember us talking about policing at all. He's a part of so many different things in the community. There are different projects that he's started. I can't wait for him to tell us about the projects that he has started. I promise you, this is going to be, I told you that our hours go by really fast. This is going to be one of the fastest hours we've had. So I'm asking you to just chime in your questions as you get them. We will get them in. I promise you, because, you know, we want for you to come back. And hopefully Sheriff will be willing to do a part 2, because I know this is going to be that good. So without any further ado, please help me to welcome Sheriff Jayson Richardson, the Sheriff of DeSoto Parish here in Louisiana. Sheriff, how are you?
Man, I'm wonderful. Just glad to be here.
And we're glad to have you, sir. We're glad to have you. I want to start off, jump right in by asking you, why did you become a sheriff? What made you become a sheriff?
It's kind of a two-part answer there. One is my mother was in law enforcement most of my life. She actually retired in February. She worked for me the last several years of her career. So they were good. They were good times. And then certainly when I had to be the sheriff, sometimes I just didn't stop by for Sunday dinner, because I had to be the boss too. But no, that was certainly an honor. And so that was a big influence. My stepdad, who raised me, was a state trooper, and so I was just surrounded by law enforcement influences most of my life, and so that was a factor. And when I was, my biological father was quite a violent person, and when I was 12, he committed a mass murder. The last victim, I actually watched them pass away at 12 years old. So that completely different emotion, completely different influence. That I wanted to do the opposite of that. I didn't feel as if I owed. I never felt that I owed anything back, that I could somehow take away, that situation. But what I did want to do was be as far apart from that as I could, and do my due diligence to keep those types of things from happening again.
Well, I know you have questions.
Well, no, actually, Sheriff started off by saying it was a two-parter. So I'm hearing the family part. So I'm curious about what the second part of the answer was.
No, but the first part was his mom and stepdad, law enforcement. The second part was his biological dad, so forth and so. Right.
So I mean, that is
Right.
such I don't even know what word to use to describe what you just talked about.
That's why I didn't tell you about it ahead of time.
The impact of both of those almost conflicting experiences had to have been so great on you. And
Absolutely.
So tell me about what it was like to, start off with the experiences that you did, because you don't just get up and become sheriff today. Like, it doesn't happen that way. There's a process. No. So tell me a little bit about coming from those childhood experiences and working your way up to that level. How did you get there?
I had the opportunity not long after I graduated high school to become a police officer. I spent my first several years as a police officer, actually for the city of Mansfield, where Pastor Winston is currently at. And so I spent my first few years there, and then ultimately moved to the sheriff's office and have been there for 20 years now. But it was, I guess, as far as my life moving up to the point where I finally made that decision. If I'm honest with you, I would say that my parents both, particularly my dad, he steered me away from that career decision because there was a lot of difficulties. He just as we meet challenges today and in the recent past, those same challenges were being met then. And so certainly it can create a stigma of, that's not something you want your children involved in. And so, while they were an influence that pushed me towards it, there was also somewhat of an influence that was hesitant for me to take that career path. But it was one of those things that once it becomes part of your life, it's just not something that public service is not something you can just walk away from without losing a piece of fulfillment that you feel like you should be doing or giving back. If it's meant to, if that's what's in your heart.
When did you discover that in your heart? And what was that process like?
I would say I guess I discovered that early on. I was involved in lots of any way I could help. I guess certainly I was very involved in my church from a very young age, and so I think that builds a sense of stewardship, a sense of responsibility, that there's more to life than just what's in you, and what's the whole thing isn't about you. And so when as that becomes instilled, again, I think there's a few careers. Obviously, you all have chosen the career that you've chosen, but I don't see that as being so far away from the ministry that I chose. And so I think that's kind of where it's at. Is if you're called to be in ministry, whether that's standing in a pulpit and leading a congregation, or being on the streets and touching people in their worst times, it's all a ministry. And so I guess, in short, that was the ministry I was called to.
Jimmy, before I go on, you have any early questions?
No, I'm just soaking this all in, Sheriff Richardson, and it's fascinating, the journey that you were on. As I think, Kamala, I think the word that the polar opposites of kind of what was going on in your life, that you have two sides pulling on you, and it's like you see the cartoon where you have two people on your shoulder, and there's one saying, Go ahead, Jayson, go ahead. And then the other side, Jayson, don't do it.
Right.
And what you do, how does that translate that when you're talking with folks in the community, whether they are the perpetrator, or whether they are the victim? How do you connect those experiences that you had, because you've had some stressful experiences? How do you translate that?
How do they inform?
How do you inform? How do you comfort? And begin to connect to those citizens that you come in contact with?
Well, I think that one is, I come from a place of understanding of it's always helpful to recognize that the history up until today doesn't necessarily define a person. And the main thing is you just treat people with respect. You get a long way with people. I've arrested literally hundreds of people in my career, and because of the way that I feel as I interact with them and treat them, these can be pretty serious crimes, and us have just a normal conversation throughout the process that otherwise, you could create a lot of tension. It could be an adversarial type interaction, and so I think, again, one is coming from a sense of understanding and compassion to look further than, okay, I see somebody that's just doing bad or doing wrong. It's the need and the want to understand, how did we get here? And if there's a way to interject, if there's a way to offer a service, and sometimes there's a way to not even take it to the level of being a crime in those circumstances. You can use those instances to mentor somebody, and I guess that's the greatness of law enforcement, is sometimes you have that officer discretion, is what they refer to it as, but to literally just pull up a chair by somebody and say, let's talk about this. And so I've had those opportunities to be able to do that. I've been able to take my situation. I was very fortunate. I did have a supportive, although it was my stepdad who I call my dad, but I did have a supportive home life, and so that is one of those things, again, that you have to look at from a perspective of, that's not as prevalent as you think it is. And you have to understand that, and sometimes what they need is a strong male figure that doesn't necessarily have to be 20 years older than them, or a father figure per se, but somebody just to give 5 minutes to mentor them, and hand them a phone number and say, hey, before you get yourself in this situation again, call me. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So.
Someone said, Brother Glenn said, I like what the sheriff said about ministry. That's very important in the time we're living now. We need both pastor and the sheriff to work together for the community. I love what you said, sir. And this, I think this is a good time to say that sheriff is also an ordained pastor. So he has both sides. So when he says that this is a ministry, he knows what he's saying.
Pastor Winston, it's 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 22. Becoming all things to all men.
All men. You can reach some
might be saved. And that Sheriff Richardson, you get a chance to put on a multiplicity of hats to be able to reach folks and to reach them where they are. And that's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely.
So,
just something that struck me from what you said, Sheriff. You made the statement, the history up until today does not define a person.
And you were going to grab that.
But I love it.
I knew you were going to grab that.
And it's
okay, I like a hashtag. The history up until today does not define a person. And I love that up until today piece.
So I hear in that, your own experience kind of speaking itself into that. The history up until the day that things changed for you and life changed for you didn't define you. I hear that connected to how you talked about this being a ministry as well. The people that you serve, I may encounter you today, and the person I encounter today may not be their best self, but that doesn't mean that they can't be something different. And I love that because obviously speaks to me from a mental health perspective, because that's the same perspective that we will take when we encounter people. And so I'm just really struck by it. I wanted to highlight it because I really loved how you saying that, because I believe that really speaks to the heart of policing a community, to have that empathetic perspective. Yes, you're enforcing law, but you're also doing it from a sense of how can I serve the community? Is how I heard it.
So let me jump on that to ask, where did that come from? Where did that, because that's not as prevalent, that's not as practiced as you're making it sound easy with you. So within your mind, where did that sense, and here's the word that you use that I'm going to ask you to follow up on, where did that sense of stewardship versus lordship versus do what I say ship, where did that sense of stewardship come from?
I would reflect back to my upbringing in the church, and then the examples that were set for me by my mother, my grandmother, people like that who were, that's what they did. They served anybody and everybody. It didn't matter status, none of that. It was just and there was never a reason. It was that was your purpose. And so I think, again, I bring a lot of that from my upbringing. But then, I have some specific examples of individuals that I grew up around, I guess you would say, that took a terrible path that was going to send them to prison for most, if not the rest of their life. And, I would go sit with them oftentimes behind the bars in the jail. And just once they were of a clear mind. I mean, certainly it's tough to talk rational to someone who's not able to be rational, but you give them time to get in a mindset of clarity and openness, and you go sit down and you have a conversation with them, and you start talking about life. What's all, not only we generally can figure out how we got here, I guess, but is this how you want to continue? And is this there's no way, a lot of these situations, I know that this is not what you want to look forward. And I think sometimes that is the problem, is there is no looking forward. I'm literally living by the moment, and I don't have any future aspirations. I don't have goals that I want to meet. I don't have, I have no expectation. That would be the simplest way of saying it. There is no expectation for tomorrow. And so when there's lack of expectation for tomorrow, then there's no real structure to today. And so, you
hold on, Sherry. Hold on. You just drop. You can't just say that stuff and just run, man. Hold on. When they are, and it can't hashtag.
Well, I've got a book that you could. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't know.
I was waiting. When there's a lack of expectation for tomorrow, there is no structure for today.
Wow.
Hashtag when that's good, Jimmy. That can preach. Oh, well, he's a preacher. Okay.
Gotta preach.
When there's a lack of expectation. When there's a lack of expectation for tomorrow, there is no structure for today. Yes, sir. That was good. I know NK got that. You'll see it up there in a second. Go ahead.
But in reality, that's what you see when when tomorrow has no more meaning than today. Then I just live by the minute, and I have no reason to do better because there's nothing good coming my way. And so, when you catch them in that sense of clarity, and you start talking about the fact that it doesn't have to be this way. Be it finding yourself in my hotel is not somewhere that you want to find yourself staying very often, because it's just not where you find productive life. Certainly, it is where some find a change, but we call it the Richardson Ritz. I don't know that it's 5 stars. But in reality, having a conversation specifically with someone that I've known their entire life, and they've known me their entire life, and them today, living differently because of that, that's just an example. I don't know how many of those, specifically there are, but that's another reason that it's important for me, and even with those that work for me, to express that is you never know what few words you may say that could be the difference in there's a reason for me to be here tomorrow.
Right.
That person, that there is something different, and that there's somebody that if I call, may offer me some help, or whatever that may be. But I guess that's all it takes is truly you can make a difference. I could give you again some examples of that, and it's from nothing miraculous, nothing at my doing or anybody else's, earthbound, but just interacting with them in a way that makes them recognize there can be something better tomorrow, and them not thinking you're saying it because that's what's on the paper to say,
Right. Let me ask you this question real quick, and then just real quick. I have to ask you this because you said that. So there is this reel or story I see on Facebook all the time where this judge is sentencing this man, and in her sentencing, she recognizes him and she says, "Hey, what's your name? Did you go to X middle school?" And he goes, and then all of a sudden he realizes who it is, and he just breaks down like, "Oh," and she was like, "You were so kind." When you see people that you have known, or when you have to interact with people that you have known, and you're seeing them on the other side of life, share with us some of those emotions as a human being that you're going through, because we heard the empathy, we go behind and sit down with them, but share with us some of those raw emotions that you're feeling as you're going through.
Well, sometimes it's heartbreaking, more often than not. It's just, you see those situations, and particularly because if you've known them most of their life, before they got that way, before whatever's going on, and oftentimes it is it's drug related. I mean, it's more often than not that's the devil we're dealing with. But it's knowing that person, and then knowing that this person isn't that person. Now, that person is there, but knowing that this person is not that same person that I knew, that can be the heartbreaking part. Is whether that can ever be the same again. Whether you ever get to see that person again, because very few people that I know ever start down that road with the intention of ending up in those places. But oftentimes that's what happens. So the emotion is again, I guess more often than not, it's not a positive emotion. It's a negative, heavy, burdensome emotion, because just as a pastor, you want to fix everything, and as a dad, and as a man, you feel like it's your role and responsibility to fix everything. And oftentimes, and not even just in that situation we're talking about, but in bad situations in our community where tragedy has happened or things like that, that's the nature that you have, is you want to fix those things. And so it's the same emotion, there it's a heavy burden, but it's those specks of light, those small changes, those positive outcomes and sometimes that positive outcome isn't for the person that's in jail. Sometimes that positive outcome is for the person that's been victimized, for maybe a wife or a child that's been abused. Sometimes that's the positive outcome, and so it's those times that you see, which certainly don't outweigh the negative, as far as the how much of that you see, and it will be probably one of the biggest crosses that you can bear, particularly in my line of work. But you got to pay attention to the embers, I guess you see out in the burned fields. You got to see those. You have to recognize those and reach for them, I guess. And also, the embers being those that want to change, or those good things that take place. You have to focus on that and not everything else that's around it. And so that's what keeps you moving forward. That's what keeps you, taking the time to not give up on the next one just because you're so defeated by the last two or three. So that's I guess that's kind of the emotional side of it, but definitely there's some positive.
Yeah, we had a comment that popped in while you were speaking, Sheriff. Stacy said a servant heart is what is needed, and I'm struck by what you said about it's those embers, because I think to myself, like, one of the things that has come up for me is, somebody will see you and they'll say, you said so and so and so, and you walk away, and they'll say that's the thing that changed my life, and you'll walk away going, wow, that was the thing, really? And so when I hear you speak about embers, I'm curious, is there a particular ember that comes to mind tonight, something that you've experienced that you walked away and it was like, yeah, a change was made there for you?
Yeah, I mean, if you follow my social media at all, there's a particular individual that comments all the time about my influence on his life, and I guess he would be one of those embers. He was headed down if he would have continued much longer, he would be in prison, for many years. He was just headed that way, and again, it was drug related, but it had such a grip on him that he couldn't see his way up, and so he was one of those, particularly that I went and talked with, and once he got out, and he's been straight ever since. Not even, not well, as far as I know, not even remotely close. But you look at his life and tell that his life has changed, because he has a stable home. He's a dad to his kids, doing all of those types of things that he should do, and he's also changed the people he's with, which is important.
Mhm.
And moved himself to be around people that are positive influences. But what he always goes back to, and this is one of a few that tell me this, but is that
Mhm.
the fact that I went back and took time to talk to him, although
Mhm.
he felt like he was, this is his word, certainly not mine, that he just felt like he was beneath me too far for
Mhm.
me to take the time, as far as and the decisions that he had made in his life, for me to take the time to talk to him. Um, and so he said it was the fact that I took the time to talk to him and listen, more than necessarily talk. But then, after he decided he was going to do right, that I would call, I would ask, "How you doing?"
Mm.
I'm, I haven't heard anything, and I don't want to hear anything unless it's positive.
Mhm.
But to see him change, and it's not. And sometimes we forget that again. I go back to the ministry. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you want to change the world, but sometimes it's you don't, because you don't get to see it all, because we're people who want to see, like, I want to see the rewards of what I've done now, but oftentimes it's generational, and
Yes.
you
That's
may or may
good.
not get to see the fruits of that, but how many
Yeah.
people that actually affects, long term.
Mm-hmm.
That's I guess that's the situation with this particular gentleman. Is I actually have gotten to see the fruits of not only
Mhm.
his success, but you see the trajectory of his kids' lives going completely different than what
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
they would have gone. So
Yes.
that's the ember for me.
I love that.
I love it. I love it. Jimmy, you have anything? Because I got three things I want, and they're both all three of them going to take some time. So go ahead, Jim.
So, 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 Sheriff Richardson, in a small town like Mansfield, 5,000 folks. It's about 5,000, right? Population about
A
4,500 to
little less, yeah,
5,000.
4,600.
How can you get the community? I know the embers kind of help with the connection. So if you could talk to me as a pastor, and I know you're a fellow pastor, but now take off your pastor hat for a minute, but put on your law enforcement hat, the community service portion. How can I communicate to my members that, many times in situations, and I come from Washington D.C., where it seemed like it was crime all the time. People know, people know, and the unrealistic expectation that you all can solve every crime on your own. How do we begin to communicate to our to the residents, to our constituents, to our members, that the police department is a safe place to come to tell what's going on?
Good job.
Sure. Well, I think that's twofold, and I think that's I think you have to do a good job, and I think I have to do a good job. So I think we have to instill in the community that, one, that they're protected, if they, that their information is protected, and not only is it protected, that it's valued, that it's actionable. If you come tell us that we're not just taking that and uh, just hearing you, and that's all we do with that. So um, you have to take action with the information that you get. So there has to be a visual result to the things that people are going to share with you, or they're not going to share with you. And then there has to be a lot of confidentiality. And a lot of times that comes with, they don't have to tell me directly, but having relationships with people in the community, such as yourself, uh, and other leaders in the community, to where they know me well enough, or my office well enough, to that if people don't feel comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
uh, that they feel comfortable telling you,
Mhm.
and you having that relationship. One of the things you hear me talk about a lot, if you hear me publicly speak, is uh, people. There's a stigma about politics, and I am a politician, by definition, I run for office and I'm elected, and so by definition, I'm a politician. But oftentimes, what we refer to as politics is simply relationships. When they say you're out politicking, well, oftentimes that's building bridges that otherwise didn't exist. That is building relationships that didn't exist. And so and I'm coming back around to what you asked me, but I take the long road a lot of times. But but it's us building relationships with you. That has to exist first before the people you influence can be influenced in a way that you see. They have to believe you, and you have to believe you before, you can impart that upon anybody that follows you. And so that's step number one, is building the relationships between me and you and being those influential leaders. And then in your community, and we had this opportunity, me and Winston had the opportunity to talk about this, but I can only provide you the community and the level of security in the community that you allow me to provide you. And so, with you, and I say you with constituents or parishioners or citizens of the locality, if they want successful and safe communities, then that has to be their expectation. But that is not something, as you said, that's not something that I, as law enforcement, can do by myself. Oftentimes, we're responding to things that have already taken place. So the only way we would know to respond prior to that is through information that would be given to us prior. And so, I think it is to express to the people in the congregations that, that you have to demand the type of environment that you want your community to be. And that is not a me thing, a you thing, a them thing. That is a us thing. So we each play our own part. It's no different than a family. And I'll hear me go back to that a lot. But if dad and mom have two completely different expectations in a household, it's going to be very difficult and chaotic. But when my expectation and the expectation of our law-abiding citizens are the same, then there's no gray room. We both expect the same thing. When it happens in your community, you let me know. We come, we take care of the problem, and we show that we demand this particular level of security in our community. But that can happen without every part being involved.
Yeah.
That's good.
A couple of comments.
Yes, go ahead.
We had a couple of comments that came in. Humility. Sometimes the circle we influence is so far and wide. Keep serving and leading, Sheriff. And hands clapping there. A rebuilding of trust with the community and law enforcement is needed. And then our final comment that came in was, we need more sheriffs like this sheriff in all the communities in this country. There would be a great difference. People need to feel comfortable around their officers.
All right. So you wait now, Brother Glenn, if you think that was good, you wait till I ask him this question. Sheriff, as we sat and we talked, one of the things that gave me goosebumps that I want for you to talk to us about, and we're not necessarily going to understand processes, but I really want for you to talk to us about the heart of this. You created a program, and Jimmy, I want for you to hear this, Jimmy. I want for you to hear this, Jimmy. Jimmy, I want for you to hear this. It's the gift. You can pay me afterwards, Jimmy. You created a program where you can identify people, your officers can identify people with various challenges, whether it's hearing challenges, seeing challenges, mental challenges, so that, and this is what the sheriff said to me, so that we can decrease the incident of you did not obey command. Would you talk to us about that? And I want for you to talk to us. We're not necessarily going to understand the processes. What I want to hear after you tell us about you're going to not explain what I just said. But after you've explained that portion of it to us, the technicalities of it, then talk to us about the heart of where that came from.
Sure. Yeah. So I guess briefly, what it is we call it our Special Needs Awareness Program. And we initially started it in 2018, and it was address based. And so if we had prior information at an address and it was provided, we went to the public to provide that information for the benefit of those interactions. Because we have autism's a wide spectrum from fully functioning individuals to there's just so many spectrums there. But there's all kind of other types of special needs out there. It could be anything from dementia, Alzheimer's, those types of things that would be helpful. And so initially it was address based. It could be anything basically that you want to pre-warn us of to change the interaction or make the interaction as positive as it could be. So we initially placed that information into our CAD system. Anytime we were dispatched to an address, that information was available to the dispatcher as well as in the car with the officers. So that's how it started. We grew that. We grew that fairly large, and then January of this year, we had purchased a new CAD system, which is our software components, and it had an additional. We purchased it intentionally based upon its ability to do certain things, and one of them is that we could also attach that information to a vehicle. And so we issue stickers. They fill out basically it's not an application, but it's a process where they provide the information. It's in our app. It's very accessible. And then we provide a sticker that goes on the car. If they see that sticker, they know to run that tag immediately that there is something that they need to know. For example, and I had this particular incident happen to me. I pulled over a vehicle that had someone that was deaf driving. I didn't know that. It wasn't a hearing impaired tag. Would not roll the window down, would not, nothing for me. And so certainly I see what about anxiety from Mr. Mack. Certainly any of those things that could create some significant circumstance, certainly that any of those could be utilized in that particularly. But that was a situation where she wasn't obeying commands. I didn't know it was at night, so I couldn't tell exactly who was driving the vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't obeying command. Well, fortunately, it did not escalate too greatly, but that could have been a really heightened situation. And sometimes people deal with their emotions different, and you start individuals that may escalate their emotions on both sides of that. And so that was a specific experience that I had. But there's some other reasons behind what I decided to initiate, what made me initiate the program. But that's where we started. And then this year we received funding to take that program statewide. So we're in 7 parishes now.
Exactly. That's why I didn't tell you about this stuff before.
And I'll even, since we've met, Pastor Winston, since we've met, we actually have, we're in New York, Alabama. We're in 4 counties in Alabama, but we're actually actively building a piece of software that, without some sort of obstacle that's unforeseen at this point, will allow that to, to be able to even non-participating locations. So that was one of the things that concerned me after I got started, which made me kind of go down another avenue and start asking questions. We could have that information, and if that person was, for example, a non-verbal autistic person that functions otherwise, but they're in another state, well, it just bothered me that we would have the information, but it wouldn't matter.
Right.
So that's as bad as just not having it. And so that was the reason that we're actually developing a piece of software that will allow, if we collect that information, it doesn't matter where in this country they are, when they run the license plate, that information is coming. So that's the
That
latest
is
trajectory that
amazing.
we're on. So we could possibly be national.
Yeah,
That'd be great.
that is amazing. So
It is.
So
bringing
I'm
back up the
thinking,
question that you asked,
yeah.
where did the heart of this come from? Because that's amazing.
So we have one of the things that's so I have an aunt that's Down syndrome, and so I was, she's older than me. She's 50, turns 55 day after tomorrow, so 13th of September. But so I was raised with her. I had, and she is certainly highly functioning, but it allowed me to be involved in that community, particularly in the school settings, and so we started a program called Bringing Joy. But I guess it was my first day that I got when I got elected, and so we started that program. Her name is Joy, so we named it after her. And we do, we bring the entire parish, the special needs community within the parish, we bring that in together, generally at least 4 times a year, to have different events. And generally, man, they just love music. So if anything you can play music to, it doesn't matter what else you're doing. If you play music and we can dance, then that's all. That's a big time. So, but we do those events, and we have pizza parties, and we do the Special Olympics and all those things. And so that's the, I guess that's the heart behind it. That's where it started, was just my connection to the special needs community. But then also I had a very limited knowledge of that with my aunt. But then being part of that, you see all of the different spectrums and all of the different, there are some that can, they'll be self-sufficient, can live. And that's that's, I guess, the ultimate process of what goes on now in our schools. It's more than it used to be, for sure. They teach skills all the way out to the age of 20 with a Dove program here in DeSoto that teaches them life skills of how to be self-sufficient, those that can be. And so because of that, we may see many more of those interactions. So it was important to put that other piece in place.
Now, real quick, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Do you do professional development with your officers to help with that aspect of training, to be able to recognize those things and to be able to address them when they are met with them?
We do.
Because let me add to Jimmy's question. What you're talking about is a work of heart. I see Stacy said it's the Lord's anointing. What you're talking about is not something that I know that can be trained. It's not something that can be taught. It's something that has to be caught. So how do you put that heart piece in your professional development?
I think it happens without the deputies even knowing it happens. And I think that's because the interactions that we host, that are the parties and all of those things, that's deputies that are facilitating that. And so
parties, social events.
That's it's social, right? You say we socialize them in those atmospheres. One, it certainly, a lot of times people feel some anxiousness in their spirit when they get around something that's uncomfortable, that they don't understand. And I think we see those interactions too often with police officers, and not just, certainly you see them more with police officers because all of those interactions are recorded. But I think that even, just the lay citizen, they get into a situation they don't understand, or near someone they don't understand, and they get an anxiousness about their spirit, and so the special needs events that we host that are fun, positive events, they may not recognize it because that's not necessarily how I guess it's billed to them, but it creates those interactions that gives them some sort of calmness of their spirit.
Yep.
But you can't
Familiarity.
train that.
Right.
That's not something you can train.
Right.
I don't believe you can train it.
No, I don't either. Let me. I'm gonna go ahead, Mom.
No, I was just, Sheriff, I just want to applaud you. Now, this might be a dated term. I don't know. I did the criminal justice degree 10 years ago. But what I hear is proactive policing.
Yes, community policing.
That's
yes.
how I hear it.
Yes.
Because in so many of our, different disciplines and areas and ways that we impact people, we tend to be real reactive to stuff.
Yes.
And what you just described to me speaks to a really thoughtful process about how we can anticipate a need and then respond accordingly. So I applaud you.
So, Sheriff, here's where I'm going, and we only have 6 minutes. We only have 6 minutes. So, Sheriff, I hope you can give us a few minutes over, and can we set up a part 2, because this is crucial. The Black community and the police has a sorted, to say the least, to say it mildly, historical history, and how. Well, number one, let me ask you, from a law enforcement perspective, do you understand the distrust of the Black community to the police?
Yes. I recognize. So oftentimes you one of the I guess least productive things you can do is ignore that and move forward as if that doesn't exist. Most times, and this is statistical, this isn't something that I just made up, but, we find those same communities that have the least trust in us have the most problems, and particularly are the most violent. But a lot of that is because the trust aspect of that, I think, moves more towards handling situations yourself versus allowing it to be handled through normal channels that others may feel comfortable handling. And so, one, you have to recognize that it's a real situation, and to ignore it is doing a disservice not only to being proactive, but it's not serving the community that you're trusted to serve. And so recognizing it is I would say you can't fix any problem you don't recognize. And so that's one thing. And I don't certainly pretend to know or have all the answers or think that I can somehow fix something that has taken decades and decades and to create. But I recognize that. But that's not the problem, but I guess the most beneficial thing that I have found is you can't wait to be part of that community until something bad happens, and that is the only time they see you. You can't build trust in those times. And many times there's emotions and all of those things, that are related to situations that may be happening. And so if you wait till then to try to have a rapport, it's just probably not going to happen. And so the key to that is building that rapport every day. Fortunately, in our community here, I don't have to work a homicide each day. I don't have to work a violent crime each day. So every day that I don't have to do that is a day that I can spend doing those things that are positive in the community, building those relationships. Just as you stopped to talk to me and we spent 2 hours talking, I don't often have that kind of time, but it's when you recognize that you do, to utilize every minute that you have in a way that's productive. My conversation with you that day was as productive as anything else I did that day. And so it is that was just a conversation. I feel like we have a friendship based upon that. each day that my deputies are in the street, and I always did this as a deputy myself, but literally to just stop and see somebody outside of their home and spend 10 or 15 or 20 minutes, and now you humanize each other.
Yes. Yes.
Yep.
So
Yes.
You know, Sheriff,
Yes.
you touched on that, and
You
if you go
humanize.
back, and I know you're gonna go back and watch a couple of these, but you'll find that
There it is.
every
There it is,
time
Mom.
we have a conversation with somebody, we come to this point where we have to talk about our relationships. As
Yes.
people. Like nothing works without relationship.
Nothing.
And too often we try to put these square pegs into round holes, trying to build trust and community without
Relationship.
and it just doesn't work.
Yes.
So I'm
good.
appreciative of hearing you say that. Absolutely.
So I think, Annika, we need a part 2. It's 8:59 because I want to talk about how do we become. We talk about the relationship, but from law enforcement perspective, how do we build that relationship with the Black community? Yes, we talk, we meet and we talk, but just like we talked about socialization with
The special needs community.
with the special needs community is, what are the social and I think you have a great model that can help places like Shreveport, where there is murder every day, where there is stuff happening every day. How can we implement some of that? So what I would like to do, this is what I'd like to do, Kamala. This is what I'd like to do. I'd like, Annika, for us to get in touch with Chief Childress, Brian,
That'd be cool.
introduce them ahead of time, and then bring them both back. Chief Brian Childress, Sheriff, when I pastored in Valdosta, Georgia, and I became the police chaplain for that department there, and we built a brother relationship. We became brothers. He's no longer chief of the department. He works with Kalia now. But if we could introduce you guys and then have them talk before, and then bring all of us back together and then talk about that, and just maybe we could play a small part in healing this relationship. Maybe, who knows?
Shoot, you shooting low.
Birthplace of
birthplace
of
some
that would be
greatness.
ignoring all the healing that has happened before. So
Not discounting it.
not
just
discounting
saying.
it. Okay, all right. Sheriff, there's one thing I do want for you to please touch on before we go, and that circle of hope. I want for you to, because I want to show, I'm trying to give you a full picture of the man that we're talking to. So would you please touch on circle of hope? Tell us, hopefully you'll agree to come back and we can talk more about it. But could you please?
So I think we talked about a lot today. So Circle of Hope was a premonition of the Bringing Joy program. So that was special needs related. What I think you're talking about is faith and fostering.
Yes,
which is,
yes.
2020, COVID obviously was, had us on our heels, and just lots of things going on that we had not dealt with before, but also the blessing in COVID for quite a few people, I think, was maybe a time to refocus energy, to really think out some things that otherwise they had not had time. My staff was gone for several weeks as we kind of, obviously not my patrol deputies, but my office staff was gone, and so it was much quieter. I went to work every day because I don't know anything else to do, but I spent a lot of time thinking about things, and so I'd had an interaction, and we'd had 3 incidents. 2 of them involved females that had been victims of sexual molestation as juveniles, but had either been placed in foster care and aged out of foster care really quickly, or because the suspect was, or the perpetrator per se, was a family member. Sometimes it's not the perpetrator that's put out of the family because that's grandpa or that's whatever, and so
The provider.
the child sometimes becomes displaced. And so, and then I had a young man that basically was just on his own, living between the dumpsters, behind North Dakota High School, and we happened to find him, and that was a place he felt comfortable. So he had been staying there for a few nights. And so the problem I had was the only thing that we had to do with those was take them to our to the mission in Shreveport. They were all adults at that point. And so, and while that's a great option to have, it should not be the only option that we have, because you're taking individuals who are so impressionable and you're putting them in a place where there are people who, aren't living a straight and narrow life, and they're impressioning and influencing these individuals. They're still suffering from drug issues and all of those things. And so, it bothered me and was weighty what the success of, because you just send them off and then you don't see them again and you don't know what the outcomes are, but you can, visualize that they're not positive outcomes likely. So in some conversation with some other people who work in the same genre of that, they were specifically in foster care at that time. We had a interest in what was the solution to this problem. And so in 2020, March of 2020, we created Faith in Fostering, which basically I'll say that our intentions were never to serve. Well, we didn't start with the intentions of serving the masses, as opposed to giving a little service to a lot of people, which you can find a lot of them that give a little service to a lot of people. We were more concerned with giving a lot of service to a few people, complete surrounding of every aspect of their life. And so that was, we had the goal, the vision, but we did not necessarily have the things that it needed to take us to the next level. So ended up with a grant of $250,000 that I had to return because the vision that we saw was not the vision that apparently we needed to see. We were trying to buy a home and start a home. My vision, what I saw was like a house and a home environment versus a institutional environment. And so it just wasn't panning out. So we turned that money back in and it was repurposed for another purpose. And then in October of 2020, we had I was literally opening our substation in Stonewall and had a man walk to me and say, I have a house that my stepdaughter passed away. She young, was 40s and passed away. Not something that that they expected at that, when she was living. But she had a log house and on a very nice piece of property with a beautiful pond behind it. And he said, I don't want to sell it. I want to do something positive with it. And as he's telling me this, we were having our open house, and Faith in Fostering is setting their tent up directly behind his shoulder. So I said, don't move. And so I went and got who turned out to be our director. We hired her as our full-time director. She's the head of CASA, which a lot of you probably are familiar with CASA. She was the director of CASA. So it was a big jump for her to leave that very well-sustained program to come to us, but it was her vision as well. And so since then, that's been 3 years. We have 3 apartments in Shreveport, 3 in Bossier. We now own 3 houses. We actually have some property in Shreveport with a house on it that was donated. That's actually a large piece of property. We got it as close to DeSoto Parish as we could get it. I really wanted it here, but but we're developing a kind of a small neighborhood where we will now put these individuals, and they have to have a life plan. They have to meet with their mentors. It's Christian based. They have to follow this life plan, but the biggest thing they have to do is they have to ask to be part of it. We make ourselves known, but they have to go through the application process. We teach them to drive. Many of them have no skills when it comes to just basic hygiene. You teach them all of that through mentors. They have to work either full-time, school full-time, or a combination of both. And we teach them how to be successful adults, and we stay with them. It's generally 24 is what we've said our age out time is. We've never aged anybody out at this point. but we've gotten children back that have been lost by 17-year-old girls that had children that were in foster care, and the state took them. We've been able to get several of those back and their moms. Just it's really come a long way in such a short amount of time. And there's a lot of God moments, that you see of where you visualize things going such a different way, and then it's almost like you take that slap that refocuses your attention and says, no, this is the way, and then it's just there. It's just there to happen. And so that is the ministry that we started, and it is a thriving. I wish we could, as fast as it's moved, it seems like we could do it twice as fast. But I guess, again, the Lord, he plants our feet in the steps we need to take. And so if he wants them to be faster, then he'll make them faster. But that's been a huge success of ours, and one I've been excited to see grow, and one that I think we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg. I will tell you something, though, that I think is important. I think each of you will see that. But we had a situation where we had a grant that we were getting yearly since we started, and there came a time where we were asked to, again, we're a Christian-based organization, and so we were asked basically to rewrite our bylaws to change our moral standing so that we would be acceptable for this particular grant. And so we were at a point of, we needed that grant to function, but we all, I'm the vice president of the board, but a few of us had a conversation, and I said, if we compromise, we might as well compromise on anything, because yes, we need the money, but the whole program is built upon the premise that we require a life plan out of our people, and then to follow that life plan. If we step out of our own life plan, then we're nothing. And so we turned it down. Well, we just told them that we weren't going to be, going after the grant anymore. And within 6 months, we probably received 3 times the amount.
This do you understand why I begged him to come on?
Yeah, we need part 2, Sheriff.
Can we read these comments in party?
Let's see.
Leading by example.
Leading by example, it can be taught. We hit the nail on the head. We're very reactive people, but we can absolutely train. If not, we're saying it cannot grow. With God, all things are possible. May God bless you and protect you each day, Sheriff.
And with that, we want to say thank you all so much for being here tonight. Anna Kay, is anybody going to win anything tonight?
We had a lot of good comments. Sheriff, thank you so much for your time.
We'll come back and say thank you, Sheriff. Don't leave us just yet.
I need some information from Sheriff on that last thing.
I know you what. I didn't tell you anything purposely.
Sheriff and I'm gonna have a conversation.
Well, thank you all so much for letting us be here today, and for having me on. It's been a pleasure and an honor.
All right, Mr. Mack, we want to say thank you so very much for participating in our program tonight. You just won a $25 gift card. Oh, you didn't boost the store tonight.
I sure did, but it's not too late.
It's late. 9:12. You just won a $25 gift card to visit our store. All you have to do is go to www.kwministries.net, claim your prize, and fill out the paperwork there, and Anna Kay will get in touch with you and get you your gift card. Sheriff, we want to say thank you so very much for coming tonight, for sharing how we can heal the community together. I want to ask you to invite you to come back, because I do want for us to have a conversation of law enforcement, healing law enforcement in the Black community. I would love for us to have a conversation about that. So I do really, really want you to come back. So thank you very, very much. I knew my wife was going to have a specific interest, but I didn't want to give it away. I didn't want to spoil it. I wanted for it to be as natural as it.
Well, you didn't get it any more natural than you got it.
So,
kudos to you, Sheriff.
We're grateful. We're very grateful for you. Jimmy, I'm going to give you the last word, sir, and then we're going to say good night.
Well, Sheriff, you are the creme de la creme of sheriffs, of law enforcement, and God has anointed you, as it has been stated. And this type of ministry is not is needed everywhere. And I think the heart that you have,
the heart,
learning in school, ministry is about being relational.
Mm-hmm.
It's about being transformational and not transactional. And your ministry.
Hold on. Okay. Hashtag ministry is about being transformational, not transactional. Good job, Jimmy.
Amen. We got a hashtag out of it. But that is what you're doing. And I believe that is the groundwork. And I think, like you said, you're laying the groundwork for future growth. And you're turning the soil to put good seed in. So I just thank you for your ministry, and thank you. And I'll be getting your information from Pastor Winston too.
Listen, if it's Monday night,
you're live with KW.
Peace.